The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in floating chairs that moved through the air like silent birds. The walls were made of crystal that showed the stars outside, reminding everyone of how vast their empire was. Ambassador Thylos looked around the room with worried eyes. His blue skin was pale and his long fingers shook as he held the emergency message. The peaceful Meridian people had never liked violence, but today they were scared. Very scared. In the center of the hall, War Chief Gregson stood tall and proud. His red armor gleamed under the lights and his forearms crossed over his massive chest. The Vorthak warrior was twice the size of most beings in the room. His people had conquered 12 star systems and he was hungry for more. "The planet Earth will be ours in 30 days, Gregson announced. His voice boomed through the hall like thunder. "These humans are weak. They fight with metal bullets and small bombs. They cannot even travel between stars properly. They will make good slaves for the Vorthak Empire." Many beings in the council nodded. They had seen the reports about Earth. The humans were indeed primitive. Their fastest ships took years to reach other planets. Their weapons were simple compared to galactic standards. They seemed to spend most of their time fighting each other instead of working together. But Thylos stood up quickly. His chair flew forward until he was in the center of the hall facing the huge Vorthak warrior. "You cannot attack Earth," Thylos said. His voice was quiet, but everyone could hear him clearly. "There is an old law. A very old law that we all follow. Humans are off limits. We don't hurt them." Gregson laughed. The sound was like rocks falling down a mountain. "Old laws? These humans know nothing about us. They have no powerful friends. They cannot even leave their own star system without our help. What makes them special?" Other beings in the council began to whisper. Some of the younger species had never heard of this law. They wondered why such weak creatures would need protection. The humans had no advanced technology to trade. They had no powerful weapons to fear. They controlled only one small planet around a common yellow star. But the older beings in the council became very quiet. They remembered the stories their grandparents had told them. Stories that gave them nightmares. From the highest platform in the hall, a very old voice spoke. "I will tell you why." Everyone turned to look up. Elder Zephys slowly moved forward on her floating chair. She was ancient even by galactic standards. Her race lived for thousands of years and she was older than most civilizations. Her white eyes had seen the rise and fall of 100 empires. "War Chief Gregson," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the massive hall. "You think these humans are weak because they fight with simple weapons. You think they are stupid because they fight each other. You think they are helpless because they cannot travel between stars." She paused and looked directly at the red-armored warrior. The Kelvoran Dominion thought the same thing. The hall became silent. Even the youngest beings knew that name. The Kelvoran Dominion had been the most powerful empire in galactic history. They had controlled 40 star systems. Their fleets had been unstoppable. Their technology had been beyond anything most species could imagine. "Where is the Kelvoran Dominion now?" Elder Zephys asked. Gregson's confident smile began to fade. They are gone. But that was 3,000 years ago. Many things could have destroyed them. War, disease, civil conflict, only one thing destroyed them, the old being said. They broke the law. They hurt humans. Far away from the council hall, on a small space station orbiting Earth, Jiwan looked through her telescope at the stars. She was a scientist who studied alien life, even though no aliens had ever visited Earth. At least none that humans knew about. She had always wondered if life existed on other worlds. The universe was so big with so many stars and planets. It seemed impossible that Earth was the only world with living things. Jiwan had spent her whole life searching for signs of alien life. She studied signals from space, looking for patterns that might be messages. She examined rocks from other planets, hoping to find tiny fossils. She dreamed of the day when humans would meet beings from other worlds. Her brother Minho worked on the same space station. He was a military planner, one of the people who thought about how Earth might defend itself if they ever met hostile aliens. Most people thought his job was silly. How could humans fight beings from other stars? Such aliens would have better technology, better weapons, better ships. But Minho took his work seriously. He studied every war in human history. He learned how smaller, weaker armies had sometimes defeated larger, stronger ones. He practiced making battle plans for situations that seemed impossible to win. In the Earth shipyard, Sujin worked on humanity's newest project. It was their first real spaceship designed for long trips between stars. The ship was small and slow compared to what aliens might have, but it was the best humans could build. Sujin was an engineer who loved to solve problems. When something broke, she could always find a way to fix it. When something needed to be improved, she found ways to make it better. She believed that humans could build anything if they worked hard enough and never gave up. On Earth's surface, Kyung-soo prepared for his dream job. He was training to be Earth's first diplomat to alien species. Most people laughed at his work too. There were no aliens to talk to, they said. But Kyung-soo believed that someday contact would happen. When it did, he wanted humans to be ready. He studied every human language and culture. He learned about psychology and negotiation. He practiced dealing with beings who might think very differently from humans. He hoped that when first contact happened, it would be peaceful. None of these 4 humans knew that in the Great Council Hall, their fate was being decided. They did not know that a powerful alien empire wanted to conquer their world. They did not know that other aliens were trying to protect them. Back in the council hall, Elder Zephys continued her story. 3,000 years ago, the Kelvoran Dominion was expanding their empire. They found a small human colony ship that had lost its way. The ship had only a few thousand people on it. Families, children, old people. They were not soldiers. The old being's voice became sad. The Kelvorans decided to test their new biological weapons on these humans. They thought it would be safe. After all, what could such a small group of primitives do against the greatest military force in the galaxy? Gregson shifted uncomfortably in his armor. Something in the old being's voice made him nervous, though he did not want to admit it. The attack killed half the humans in the first day. Elder Zephys continued. Men, women, children. They died in terrible pain. The survivors sent a message to Earth telling them what had happened. She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of beings from 100 different worlds. That was the Kelvorans' first mistake. It was also their last. The ancient being raised her hand and a holographic display appeared in the center of the hall. It showed star maps, ship movements, and battle reports from 3,000 years ago. Within 6 months, the entire Kelvoran fleet was gone. 10,000 ships, 40 star systems, millions of soldiers, all destroyed by humans who had never been in a space battle before. War Chief Gregson stared at the display. That is impossible. How could primitives defeat such a force? Elder Zephys smiled, but it was not a happy smile. That, War Chief, is exactly what the Kelvorans wanted to know. Right up until the moment the last human ship turned their own capital world into glass. The hall erupted in frightened whispers. Beings who had lived for centuries had never heard this part of the story before. The older ones nodded grimly, remembering the warnings their ancestors had passed down. The law exists for a reason, Thylos said, his voice stronger now. Humans are off limits. We don't hurt them, not because they are weak, but because of what they become when they are threatened. But War Chief Gregson was proud and stubborn. He had never lost a battle. His empire had never been defeated. He refused to believe that primitive humans could be dangerous to the mighty Vorthak. Old stories, he said with a sneer. Tales told to frighten children. I will prove that humans are no threat to anyone. He turned and walked toward the exit, his heavy boots ringing on the crystal floor. In 30 days, Earth will belong to the Vorthak Empire. Then you will see how weak these humans really are. As the war chief left the hall, Elder Zephys closed her ancient eyes. She had tried to warn him. The law was clear, but some beings had to learn the hard way. In the silent hall, she whispered words that only the oldest beings remembered. They never learn. They never listen, and they never survive. Elder Zephys moved her hand across the control panel with practiced ease. The crystal walls of the council hall began to glow, and suddenly the air filled with images from long ago. These were not drawings or stories, but real recordings from 3,000 years past. Most of you have never seen these files, the ancient being said. They are kept in the deepest archives, locked away so that no one would forget why the law exists. The first image showed a magnificent fleet of ships hanging in space like silver jewels. The vessels were huge, each one the size of a small city. Their hulls gleamed with advanced armor, and powerful weapons lined their sides. Thousands of smaller ships surrounded them like a cloud of metal insects. The Kelvoran Dominion at the height of their power, Elder Zephys explained. 40 star systems under their control. Technology that we still cannot match today. They believed they were the masters of the galaxy. War Chief Gregson had stopped at the exit to watch. Even he had to admit the Kelvaran ships were impressive. His own fleet was strong, but nothing compared to what he was seeing. The image changed to show a much smaller ship drifting alone in the darkness of space. It was clearly human-made, with simple metal plates and basic engines. Compared to the Kelvoran vessels, it looked like a child's toy made from scrap metal. The colony ship Hope's Journey, Elder Zephys continued. It was carrying 3,000 human families to a new world. Their navigation system had broken and they were lost. The ship was running out of food and air. A younger council member, a being with green scales and large eyes, spoke up. Surely the Kelvarans could have helped them. Fixed their ship, given them supplies? The old being's expression became very sad. The Kelvorans had other plans. The recording showed Kelvoran ships surrounding the human vessel. But instead of offering help, they opened fire with strange purple beams. The human ship's hull began to bubble and melt where the beams touched it. Biological weapons, Elder Zephys explained. The Kelvorans had created new diseases that could eat through metal and flesh alike. They wanted to test these weapons before using them against their real enemies. The council watched in horror as the human ship was slowly torn apart. Small escape pods launched from the dying vessel, carrying families and children to safety, but the Kelvaran ships followed them, firing more of the terrible purple beams. In the recordings, they could hear the human voices calling for help. Mothers crying for their children, fathers trying to protect their families, old people praying in languages the aliens did not understand. Half of them died in the first day, Elder Zephys said quietly. Men, women, children. The Kelvarans recorded everything. They wanted to study how their weapons worked on different types of humans. One of the escape pods managed to send a message back to Earth before it was destroyed. The recording was fuzzy and filled with static, but the words were clear enough. Earth, this is Commander Park Jinwoo of the colony ship Hope's Journey. We are under attack by unknown aliens. They are using biological weapons. Many are dead. They are hunting the survivors. Tell our families. Tell them we tried to come home. The message ended in screams and silence. For several minutes, the council hall was completely quiet. Even the most warlike species felt sick watching the slaughter of innocent families. But War Chief Gregson's face showed no emotion. Tragic, he said coldly. But this proves my point. The humans were helpless. They could not fight back. They could not escape. They were weak. Elder Zephys looked at him with her ancient white eyes. You are right about one thing, War Chief. The humans who died that day were helpless. But their death sent a message to Earth. And that message changed everything. The recordings showed Earth receiving the transmission from Commander Park. At first, the humans did not believe it. Aliens attacking their people? It seemed like something from a movie or book. But as more evidence arrived, the truth became clear. Humans had made contact with aliens, and those aliens had murdered 3,000 innocent people for no reason except to test their weapons. Watch carefully, Elder Zephys said. This is when the humans stopped being harmless. The images showed cities across Earth. In every major population center, the same thing was happening. People were gathering in the streets, in government buildings, in schools and factories. But they were not panicking or running away. They were organizing. Within hours of learning about the attack, every human government on Earth had agreed to work together. Countries that had been enemies for decades suddenly became allies. Military forces that had been pointing weapons at each other turned those weapons towards space. Scientists abandoned their peaceful research to work on weapons. Engineers stopped building bridges and roads to build spaceships instead. Teachers left their classrooms to train soldiers. Even children started learning how to fight. Impossible, War Chief Gregson said. No species can organize that quickly. It takes years to coordinate between different governments and armies. You are thinking like a Vorthak, Elder Zephys replied. You think of conquest, of forcing others to obey. Humans work differently. When their families are threatened, they do not need to be forced to fight. They choose to fight. The recordings showed human factories working day and night. Ships that had been designed for exploring space were turned into weapons of war. Scientists who had spent their lives studying peaceful things now worked to create the most deadly devices they could imagine. But the most frightening thing was how quickly the humans learned. The Kelvorans had left wreckage from their attack, pieces of their advanced technology scattered in space. Human ships collected every fragment they could find. Within weeks, the humans had figured out how the alien technology worked. Within months, they were building their own versions. But these were not copies. The humans had improved the designs, made them better, more deadly. The Kelvorons thought they were safe, Elder Zephys said. Their home systems were hundreds of light years away. Even if the humans somehow built spaceships, it would take them decades to reach Kelvoran space. The recording showed the first human fleet leaving Earth. The ships were strange-looking, part human engineering and part alien technology. They moved faster than anything humans had ever built before. But speed was not their most important feature. As they traveled through space, the human ships were changing. The crews were rebuilding them, improving them, making them more powerful with each passing day. The Kelvorans detected the human fleet when it was still months away from their territory. Elder Zephys continued. They laughed. 50 human ships against 10,000 Kelvoran vessels? It would be a slaughter. War Chief Gregson nodded. Those are good odds. Even if the humans had stolen some technology, they could not match 3,000 years of Kelvoran military experience. The first battle happened at the edge of Kelvoran space, the old being said. Would you like to see it? Before anyone could answer, the images changed to show a massive space battle. The Kelvoran fleet was spread out in perfect formation, their silver ships gleaming with power. Facing them were the human vessels, dark and strange-looking, like predators hiding in the night. The battle began as expected. The Kelvorans fired their advanced weapons, beams of energy that could destroy mountains. Several human ships were hit and badly damaged. But then something unexpected happened. The human ships that had been hit did not retreat or explode. Instead, they adapted. Their armor changed, becoming resistant to the Kelvoran weapons. Their shields strengthened in exactly the right way to deflect the alien beams. How? Demanded a council member. How could they adapt so quickly? Watch, Elder Zephys said simply. The human ships attacked with weapons the Kelvorans had never seen before. Some fired the same biological agents the Kelvorans had used against the colony ship, but these had been improved. Instead of just eating through metal, they specifically targeted Kelvoran biology. Other human ships used pure energy weapons that seemed to learn from each shot. If a blast was deflected by Kelvoran shields, the next shot would be different, designed to penetrate that specific defense. But the most terrifying thing was how the human ships worked together. They moved like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. When one ship was damaged, others would instantly move to protect it. When they found a weakness in the Kelvoran formation, every human ship would immediately attack that same spot. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the entire Kelvoran fleet had been destroyed. All 10,000 ships were gone. Not one human vessel had been lost. The survivors sent a message to the Kelvoran High Command. Elder Zephys said, "Would you like to hear it?" The recording played a transmission in the Kelvoran language, with subtitles appearing for the council to read. The voice speaking was clearly terrified. "Command, this is Admiral Vexter of the 7th Fleet. The humans, they are not what we expected. They learn from everything we do. Every weapon we use, they find a way to stop it. Every tactic we try, they counter it perfectly. They fight like they share one mind, but that is impossible. How can they coordinate so well? We need reinforcements. We need... Oh no, they have found us. They are here. How did they track us so quickly? Command, do not send more fleets. Run, just run. They are not stopping. They never stop." The transmission ended in static and screams. War Chief Gregson stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crushing Fist. Through the massive viewing window, he could see his fleet spread out like a metal constellation. 200 ships, each one a masterpiece of Vorthak engineering, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. The Vorthak had spent 3 weeks traveling to the Sol system. During that time, Gregson had studied every report about the humans. They were indeed primitive. Their fastest ships took months to travel between planets in their own system. Their weapons were chemical explosives and metal projectiles. They had no energy shields, no plasma cannons, no quantum torpedoes. "Sir?" His aide, Commander Nexoth, approached with a data pad. "We have completed our scans of the outer colonies. 3 mining stations and 1 research outpost. Minimal defenses. A few dozen humans at each location." Gregson nodded with satisfaction. "Perfect targets. We will start with them. Let the humans know what happens when they face the Vorthak Empire." Far away on Earth's orbital research station, Jiwan was working late in her laboratory. She had been studying strange radio signals that seemed to be coming from the edge of the solar system. The patterns were unlike anything natural she had ever seen. Her brother Minho was in the station's command center, reviewing defense protocols that everyone hoped would never be needed. As Earth's military strategist for space operations, he had spent years preparing for scenarios that seemed impossible. What would humans do if hostile aliens attacked? How could they fight beings with superior technology? Most people thought his work was unnecessary. Earth had been sending radio signals into space for over a century, announcing their presence to anyone who might be listening. If aliens existed and wanted to hurt humans, they would have done it already. But Minho believed in being prepared for anything. He had studied every war in human history, looking for examples of weaker forces defeating stronger ones. David against Goliath. Guerrilla fighters against powerful armies. Small groups using intelligence and determination to overcome seemingly impossible odds. On the shipyard station, Sujin was putting the finishing touches on humanity's first real interstellar vessel. The ship was not large or fast compared to what aliens might have, but it represented the best human engineering could achieve. Every system had been tested and retested. Every component had been designed to be repaired or improved with basic tools. Sujin had insisted on building the ship this way. In her experience, the best machines were not the most complex ones, but the ones that kept working no matter what happened to them. She had a feeling that if humans ever met hostile aliens, they would need ships that could be fixed and upgraded quickly. Down on Earth, Hyung-soo was in his office preparing for a presentation about first contact protocols. He had spent years studying how different human cultures communicated with each other. He believed the same principles could help humans talk to alien species. His presentation focused on finding common ground, showing peaceful intentions, and avoiding misunderstandings that could lead to conflict. He hoped that when humans finally met aliens, it would be the beginning of a beautiful friendship between species. None of them knew that alien ships were already in their solar system. On the mining station, Ganymede 1, Station Commander Park Dae-ho was checking the daily reports when his communications officer called out in alarm. "Commander, I'm picking up unknown contacts on the edge of our sensor range. Multiple ships moving this way fast." Dae-ho hurried to the sensor station. The screen showed dozens of red dots moving toward them. The ships were huge, much larger than anything humans had ever built, and they were moving at speeds that should have been impossible. "Are they responding to our hails?" Dae-ho asked. "No, sir. I've tried every frequency. They're not answering." Dae-ho felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. These had to be alien ships. After decades of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, first contact was finally happening. But something felt wrong. If these aliens wanted to talk, why weren't they responding to human messages? "Send an alert to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have possible alien contact, multiple ships, unknown intentions." But before the message could be sent, the alien ships opened fire. The Vorthak weapons were devastating. Purple energy beams struck the mining station, and everything they touched simply disappeared. Not destroyed or melted, but gone, as if it had never existed. Dae-ho had just enough time to send an emergency transmission before the station's main power failed. "Earth Command, this is Ganymede 1. We are under attack by alien ships. They are using energy weapons. The station is lost. Repeat, we are under attack by..." The transmission ended as the mining station broke apart. 73 humans died in the first few seconds of humanity's first contact with aliens. War Chief Gregson watched the destruction with satisfaction. "One down. Continue to the next target." The Vorthak fleet moved to the research station orbiting Europa. This facility had even fewer defenses than the mining station. The scientists and engineers there were focused on studying the ice-covered moon below, looking for signs of microscopic life. Dr. Kim Yojin was examining samples under a microscope when the attack alarm sounded. She looked up in confusion. Attack alarms were tested once a month, but this was not a scheduled test day. "All personnel to emergency stations," the announcement echoed through the corridors. "This is not a drill. Unknown hostile ships approaching. Prepare for evacuation." Yojin ran to the nearest viewing port and looked out into space. At first she saw nothing unusual. Then the stars began to change. Dark shapes were moving across the star field, blocking out the light. Ships. Huge ships, bigger than anything humans had ever built. The research station had no weapons and minimal shields. When the Vorthak opened fire, it lasted even less time than the mining station. 41 more humans died, including Dr. Yojin. who was still staring out the viewing port when the purple beams reached her. On Earth's orbital station, Jiwan received the emergency transmissions from both attacked facilities. At first, she could not believe what she was hearing. Alien ships? Energy weapons? It sounded like something from a science fiction movie. But the signals were real. The stations were gone, and now the same unknown ships were moving toward Earth. She ran to find her brother in the command center. Minho was already coordinating with Earth's defense forces, but his face was grim. Humanity's space-based defenses consisted of a few orbital platforms, with missile launchers and some fighter craft that had never been tested in real combat. How many ships? Jiwan asked. Over 200 according to long-range sensors, each one the size of a city. Minho's voice was calm, but she could see the worry in his eyes. They're moving toward Earth. They'll be here in 6 hours. What do we do? We fight, Minho said simply. And we hope we're smarter than we are outgunned. Across the solar system, the same conversation was happening on every human ship and station. Military commanders were calculating odds and finding them hopeless. Scientists were analyzing the alien weapons and concluding they were centuries ahead of human technology. Politicians were debating whether to surrender or resist. But something else was happening too. Something that the aliens did not expect and could not understand. In the space stations, civilian workers were volunteering to stay and fight instead of evacuating. On Earth, factories were already being converted to produce weapons and ammunition. Military reserves were being called up and millions of civilians were volunteering to join them. Sujin was in the shipyard, frantically preparing every available ship for combat. Most of them were cargo haulers and passenger transports never designed for war, but she and her team were working to mount weapons on anything that could fly. These ships won't last 5 minutes against those alien weapons, one of her assistants said. Then, we'll build more ships, Sujin replied, welding an explosive charge onto a cargo pod. And when those are gone, we'll build more. Keep working. Kyungsoo had abandoned his peaceful first contact protocols. Instead, he was coordinating with Earth's governments to ensure that every human population center was prepared for the worst. His communication skills were now being used to organize resistance instead of diplomacy. As the alien fleet approached Earth, something strange began to happen. Human ships from across the solar system started moving toward the approaching threat, not away from it, toward it. Cargo ships, research vessels, mining haulers, passenger transports, they were all heading directly toward the alien fleet. War Chief Gregson watched this development with amusement. Look at them. They are sending their weakest ships against us. Do they think we will be impressed by their courage? Perhaps they are trying to surrender, suggested Commander Nexoth. Then why are they armed? Gregson pointed to the sensor readings that showed the human ships had crude weapons attached to their hulls. No, they actually think they can fight us. This will be even easier than I expected. The first human ship to reach the alien fleet was a mining transport called the New Soul. It had been carrying rare metals back to Earth when the attacks began. The crew had voted unanimously to join the fight instead of running away. Captain Lee Taehyun opened a communication channel to the alien ships. His message was broadcast on all frequencies in every human language. This is Captain Lee of the human vessel New Soul. 6 months after the first Vorthak attack, War Chief Gregson stood in the ruins of his flagship's bridge. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the smell of burning circuits filled the air. Through the cracked viewing window, he could see the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful fleet in Vorthak history. Sir? Commander Nexoth limped over, his armor cracked and leaking blue blood. We have lost contact with the 7th, 9th, and 12th battle groups. The humans have destroyed our supply base at Kepler Station, and our home fleet is reporting attacks on 3 Vorthak colony worlds. Gregson could not believe what he was hearing. That is impossible. How did human ships reach our territory? Their fastest vessels could barely leave their own star system. They are not using their own ships anymore, sir, Nexoth replied, pulling up a damaged sensor display. Look at this. The screen showed a human fleet unlike anything Gregson had ever seen. The ships were clearly built using Vorthak technology, but they had been changed, improved in ways that made no sense. Some vessels seemed to be made from the wreckage of destroyed Vorthak ships, rebuilt into something new and deadly. They are using our own technology against us, Nexoth continued, but they have made it better somehow. Faster, stronger, more efficient than our original designs. On Earth, in a hidden command center deep underground, Minho studied holographic displays showing the entire war. Red dots marked Vorthak positions while blue dots represented human forces. The map looked like nothing he had ever seen in any military textbook. Human ships were everywhere. They appeared behind enemy lines, struck without warning, and vanished before the Vorthak could respond. They hit supply convoys, destroyed communication relays, and attacked military bases with surgical precision. "How many ships do we have in operation now?" Minho asked his aide. "Over 3,000, sir, and more launching every day. The shipyards are working at maximum capacity." Minho nodded, but he was not satisfied. 3,000 ships sounded like a lot, but the Vorthak Empire controlled 12 star systems. They had millions of soldiers and thousands of worlds to defend. Humanity needed to be smarter, not just stronger. In the orbital shipyard that had become the center of human ship production, Sujin worked without sleep for days at a time. Her teams had learned to build ships using a combination of human engineering and captured Vorthak technology. But these were not simple copies of alien designs. Each human ship was unique, built for a specific mission. Some were fast scouts that could slip past enemy sensors undetected. Others were massive assault ships designed to break through Vorthak defenses. Still others were mobile factories that could build new ships using materials from destroyed enemy vessels. "The new stealth fighters are ready for testing," her assistant reported. "We have incorporated the Vorthak cloaking technology, but improved the power efficiency by 40%. "Good," Sujin said, examining the sleek new ships. "What about the heavy assault units?" "Those are more complicated. We are still learning how their armor works, but we think we can build something even stronger using human metallurgy combined with their energy shielding." Sujin smiled grimly. The Vorthak had made a mistake by bringing their advanced technology into a war with humans. They had given humanity the tools needed to fight back, not knowing that humans were very good at improving other people's ideas. Meanwhile, Jiwon had become the coordinator for humanity's biological warfare program. She had never wanted to create weapons designed to kill, but the Vorthak had forced her hand when they murdered innocent civilians. Working with captured Vorthak genetic samples, she had developed diseases specifically designed to target their alien biology. These weapons were more precise than anything the Vorthak had used against humans. They attacked only hostile soldiers, leaving civilians unharmed. "The new strain is ready for deployment," she reported to Minho during their daily briefing. "It will disable Vorthak soldiers for several days but will not kill them unless they refuse medical treatment." Minho raised an eyebrow. "Why are we being merciful to an enemy that showed us no mercy?" "Because we are not them," Jiwon replied firmly. "We fight to protect our families, not to commit genocide. When this war is over, we want to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror." Kyung-soo had abandoned his dreams of peaceful diplomacy, but his communication skills had become vital to the war effort. He coordinated between human forces scattered across multiple star systems, ensuring that every attack was perfectly timed and synchronized. But his most important job was psychological warfare. He studied Vorthak communications, learning their language and culture. He discovered that the Vorthak were proud warriors who believed they were the strongest species in the galaxy. Kyung-soo began broadcasting messages to Vorthak forces, designed to shake their confidence and make them question their leaders. His words were carefully chosen to exploit their cultural weaknesses. "Vorthak warriors," his voice echoed across their communication networks, "you have been told that humans are weak. You have been told that we are primitive. Yet your fleets burn in space while our ships hunt you through your own territory. How weak are we now?" The psychological impact was devastating. Vorthak soldiers who had never known defeat began to doubt themselves. Some units refused orders to attack human positions. Others surrendered without fighting. War Chief Gregson tried to maintain discipline in his forces, but morale was collapsing. His warriors had been trained to fight other Vorthak, or species similar to them. They did not know how to fight an enemy that learned from every encounter and improved with each battle. "Sir," Commander Nexoth reported during their morning briefing, 3 more colonies have requested evacuation. "The civilian populations are panicking. They say the humans appear out of nowhere and destroy our defenses before we can react." "Then we need to change our tactics," Gregson said. "Pull all our forces back to fortified positions. Make the humans come to us." But humanity had learned from studying Vorthak military doctrine. They knew the aliens would try to consolidate their forces into defensive positions. So they did something unexpected. They ignored the fortifications entirely. Instead of attacking Vorthak military bases, human forces began targeting the infrastructure that supported them. Power plants, communication networks, supply routes, research facilities. Every system the Vorthak military depended on was systematically destroyed. The aliens found themselves cut off from reinforcements, unable to communicate with their commanders, and running low on supplies. Their powerful fortifications became prisons instead of strongholds. On the Vorthak homeworld, the ruling council was in emergency session. Reports were coming in from across their empire, each one worse than the last. Human forces had appeared in systems that should have been impossible to reach. They struck with weapons that should not have existed. They fought with a coordination that defied explanation. How are they doing this? Demanded the Supreme War Chief. How can a primitive species coordinate attacks across dozens of star systems simultaneously? How can they build better ships than our engineers who have studied technology for centuries? The answers came from a captured human soldier. Under interrogation, he revealed something that chilled the Vorthak to their core. The humans were not just individuals fighting separately. They had created a communication network that allowed them to share information instantly across any distance. More than that, they were sharing knowledge and experiences directly. When one human learned how to defeat a Vorthak tactic, every human soldier immediately knew that information. When one engineer developed an improved weapon design, every human factory began producing it within hours. The humans had done something the Vorthak had never imagined possible. They had turned their entire species into a single unified organism, dedicated to winning the war. But the most terrifying revelation came when the prisoner was asked about human war goals. The Vorthak expected him to demand territory, resources, or tribute. Instead, his answer was simple and absolute. We will fight until every Vorthak who participated in the murder of our civilians is dead or in prison. We will fight until your military is completely destroyed. We will fight until your empire can never threaten anyone ever again. And if we surrender? The interrogator asked. Then you will be tried for war, crimes, and the survivors will be allowed to live under human supervision until we are certain you have learned not to hurt innocent people. The interrogator could not believe what he was hearing. You would spare us? After everything we have done? The human soldier looked at him with tired but determined eyes. We are not monsters. We don't want to destroy your people. We want to make sure you never hurt anyone again. If you surrender now and cooperate with war crimes tribunals, most of your people will live. But War Chief Gregson refused to consider surrender. The Vorthak Empire had never been defeated, and he would not be the first leader to disgrace his people by giving up. He ordered a final, desperate attack on Earth itself. Every remaining Vorthak ship would attack the human homeworld simultaneously. If they could destroy Earth, the human war effort would collapse. What Gregson did not understand was that Earth was no longer just a planet. It had become the heart of a galactic network of human colonies, bases, and fleets. Destroying Earth would hurt humanity. 1 year after War Chief Gregson's surrender, the Galactic Council met again in their Great Crystal Hall. But this time, 4 new seats had been added to the High Council platform. The beings who sat in them wore simple blue uniforms instead of elaborate robes or armor. Kyung-soo adjusted his translator device as he prepared to address the assembly. Around him sat representatives from hundreds of worlds, many of whom had never seen a human before. Some looked curious, others fearful, and a few seemed angry about humanity's rapid rise to power. Honored delegates, Kyung-soo began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. 1 year ago, many of you thought humans were too primitive to matter in galactic affairs. Today you know better. He gestured to a holographic display that appeared in the center of the hall. It showed a map of the galaxy, with different colors marking the territories of various species. Where the Vorthak Empire had once spread across 12 star systems, there was now something new, a zone marked in blue and labeled Human Protected Territory. We did not come here seeking conquest or empire, Kyung-soo continued. We came because others forced us to fight. The Vorthak attacked our people without provocation. They murdered our families and friends. They left us no choice but to defend ourselves. Elder Zephys, still ancient and still wise, nodded slowly from her position high above the assembly. She had seen this pattern before 3,000 years ago with the Kelvorans. But something was different this time. What will you do with your victory? She asked. her voice cutting through the whispers and murmurs. The Kelveran Dominion is gone, erased completely from existence. Will the Vorthak Empire suffer the same fate? All eyes turned to the human delegation. This was the question everyone had been afraid to ask. Humanity had proven they could destroy any enemy completely. Would they show mercy? Or would they be as ruthless in victory as they had been in war? Ji-won stood up from her seat next to Kyung-soo. As Earth's new Minister of Scientific Affairs, she had helped coordinate the biological weapons that had brought down Vorthak resistance. Now she carried the weight of decisions about life and death for millions of former enemies. The Vorthak Empire no longer exists, she said simply, but the Vorthak people are still alive. She activated another display showing the former Vorthak worlds. Instead of the glass wastelands that had marked the end of the Kelveran Dominion, these planets were intact. Cities still stood. Populations still lived and worked and raised their children. We have arrested and tried those responsible for war crimes, Ji-won continued. War Chief Gregson and his senior commanders are in prison, serving life sentences for the murder of civilians. But ordinary Vorthak soldiers and citizens have been allowed to return to their homes. A delegate from the Rigelian Confederation stood up, his insect-like features showing confusion. You spared your enemies? Even after they killed your people? Minho rose from his chair to answer. As Earth's new Minister of Defense, he had planned the strategies that defeated the Vorthak military. His decisions had saved human lives and ended the war. But his next words surprised everyone. We fought to protect our families, not to commit genocide, he said. The Vorthak soldiers who attacked our colonies were following orders from leaders who told them humans were dangerous primitives who needed to be eliminated. Many of them had never even seen a human before the war began. He paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. When we captured Vorthak prisoners, we learned something important. Most of them had no idea that humans were intelligent beings with families and feelings. They had been told we were mindless creatures like dangerous animals that needed to be put down. Sujin activated a recording that played for the entire assembly. It showed interviews with captured Vorthak soldiers, speaking in their own language with subtitles for translation. We thought they were just clever beasts, one prisoner said. Our commanders told us they could not feel pain the way real people do. They said killing them was no different from hunting dangerous predators. Another prisoner looked directly into the camera. When I saw human children crying for their parents, I realized we had been lied to. These were not beasts. They were people just like us. I threw down my weapons and surrendered because I could not kill children no matter what my orders said. The recording ended and the hall was silent. Many delegates had fought wars against other species, but they had never thought about what their enemies really believed about them. This is why the old law existed, Elder Zephys said quietly, not because humans are special, but because they make us face uncomfortable truths about ourselves. When you attack humans, you discover what you really are. Kyung-soo nodded respectfully to the ancient being. Elder Zephys warned everyone what would happen if the Vorthak attacked us. But she also taught us something important about the nature of conflict in the galaxy. He brought up another display, this one showing historical records of wars between different species. For thousands of years, galactic conflicts have followed the same pattern. One species attacks another, claiming they are superior or that their victims are dangerous. The stronger side wins through force and the cycle continues. The display changed to show a new pattern, one that had never existed before. We propose something different. Instead of ruling through fear, we will protect through strength. Instead of conquering other species, we will defend them from those who would conquer them. A delegate from the Centauri Alliance stood up, his blue skin flushed with anger. You think you can police the entire galaxy? You think you have the right to tell ancient civilizations how to conduct their affairs? Before Kyung-soo could answer, another voice spoke up. It was Ambassador Thylos, the same Meridian delegate who had tried to warn the Vorthak about the old law. Honored delegate, Thylos said. With respect, the humans are not telling us how to conduct our affairs. They are telling us that we cannot conduct our affairs by murdering innocent people. He gestured to a group of beings sitting in a special section of the assembly. These are refugees from 3 different species that have been under attack by the Zerian hegemony for the past 2 years. The Zerian have been enslaving entire populations, claiming they have the right to rule over inferior species. One of the refugees, a small being with green fur and large eyes, stood up to speak. My people sent messages to the Galactic Council begging for help. We were told that interference in local conflicts was against galactic law. Meanwhile, the Zerion were taking our children to work in their mines. Another refugee, this one a tall being with silver skin, added his voice. The council debates and discusses while our families die. The humans acted. They sent ships to protect our worlds. They drove away the Zerion fleets and freed our enslaved people. Kyungsu smiled sadly. We did not want to become the galaxy's police force. We wanted to study the stars, explore new worlds, and make friends with other species. But the galaxy has taught us that someone needs to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The display changed again, showing human fleets patrolling the borders of dozens of worlds. We have established protection agreements with any species that requests our help. We do not interfere in their internal affairs. We do not demand tribute or territory. We simply promise that no one will be allowed to attack them without facing human retaliation. Elder Zephys leaned forward in her chair. And what do you ask in return for this protection? Nothing, Jiwon replied. We ask for nothing except that our protected species follow one simple rule. They cannot attack other intelligent beings without provocation. They cannot start wars of conquest or enslave other species. And if they break this rule? The elder asked. Minho's expression became stern. Then they lose our protection and face the consequences of their actions. We have made it clear that we will defend anyone who follows the basic principles of civilized behavior. But we will not protect aggressors or conquerors. The hall erupted in excited discussions as delegates realized what the humans were proposing. It was not an empire in the traditional sense. It was something new. A protective alliance that any peaceful species could join simply by promising not to hurt others. But not everyone was happy with this arrangement. The delegate from the Draconian hegemony stood up, his reptilian features twisted in anger. You cannot change thousands of years of galactic tradition overnight, he hissed. Some species are naturally stronger than others. Some are meant to rule and others are meant to serve. This has always been the way of things. Sujin looked at him with the calm expression of an engineer solving a technical problem. You are welcome to maintain that belief, delegate. But if you act on it by attacking weaker species, you will discover that humans are naturally stronger than Draconians. The threat was delivered so matter-of-factly that it took a moment for its implications to sink in. The Draconian delegate realized that he was facing the same choice the Vorthak had faced. Accept the new rules or face the consequences. This is tyranny. He shouted. You are forcing your values on the entire galaxy. No, Kyungsu replied calmly. We are offering protection to anyone who wants it. If you prefer to live in a galaxy where might makes right, you are free to do so. Just remember that humans are very mighty indeed. Another delegate, this one from a species that had been neutral,